Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Malaysia poverty rate has risen to 8.5% in 2020 compared to the poverty rate in 2019, which is 5.6% according to the Economic Affairs Minister Mustafa Muhammad. This is because the outbreak has disrupted people's income, putting many more homes at risk of falling into poverty. This is particularly true for those who fall into the B40 and most vulnerable categories, where paid work, self-employment, property and investment and current transfer receive are the four sources of income. Paid employment and self-employment, which were the primary sources of income in 2020, both fell by negative 16.1% and negative 9.7% respectively. As a result, the average monthly household gross income fell by a negative 10.3% to 789 ringgit in 2020, down from 7,901 in 2019. Household or people who lost or reduced their income, particularly those with the status of employee, self-employed or others, contribute to the fall. Furthermore, this decrease in income was influenced not only by job losses but also by reduced working hours and a rise in skill-related underemployment. Other than that, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 drove more Malaysian households into poverty, with Sabah, Kelantan and Terengganu being the hardest hit in terms of absolute poverty as earnings shrank owing to salary cuts or job losses. According to the Statistics Department, the number of impoverished households would climb to 939,800 in 2020, up from 405,400 in 2019. The percentage of people living in absolute poverty by state show that Sabah has the highest rate, 25.3% compared to 19.5% in 2019. Poverty in Kelantan increased by 8.5 percentage points to 21.2% in 2020 from 12.4% in 2019, followed by 5.9 percentage point in Terengganu to 12% from 6.1% in 2019. The incidence of absolute poverty grew from 5.6% in 2019 to 8.5% in 2020, according to the Household Income Estimate and Incidence of Poverty report, where the hardcore poverty is expected to rise from 0.4% in 2019 to 1% in 2020, affecting 78,000 households from 27,200 households in 2019.
So this is the poverty area in Jalan Datu Dagang, Kelang, Selangor. So what is the government's rules on poverty issue in Malaysia? So government of Malaysia is the crucial actor in this issue, as they have a big role and function to address this issue comprehensively, because it is their responsibility to ensure the people living in enough necessity. Therefore, roles of government are to observe and evaluate the statistic and trend patterns of poverty growth in Malaysia annually. This is very important for them to bring the discussion to the parliament level for planning a solution to cope with it. This is also to enable them allocate enough fund to help people fulfill their necessity, provide better living conditions and increase the buying power, which is to include in the national budget. Furthermore, it is also to aware to all ministers play their part and distribute their power. Secondly, roles of local municipal council are to identify, track and evaluate poor individuals, especially in the area of operation, with the purpose to expand more facilities, relief and develop more conducive area to live. Municipal council also need to work closely with the government, non-government organisation, NGOs, private sector and community leader to involve in the implementation of the urban poverty eradication program. The involvement is important for people to have approval from local municipal to avoid any illegal action. Thirdly, roles of society to poverty issue is to always help each other in any condition. This is because everyone is not wished to be poor, but because of few circumstances forcing them to live that way. Hence, a good society doing many charities, concern people around them, help them physically and mentally to support their living conditions. So as you can see here is all the poverty.
The image of COVID-19 pandemic has caused economic activities impacted due to the MCO to curb from spread. Hence, various sectors deemed non-essential need to temporarily close their operation, and this impact the livelihoods of Malaysians, especially those with the status of employee. Self-employed.
Ini memang sangat dalam lah. Maksudnya kita baru nak meningkat, tiba-tiba PKP. Memang daripada pendapatan tu ada, terus kosong. Jadi kita tak boleh nak survive.
A study by UNICEF and UNFPA reveals that low-income urban families also deeply impacted by the pandemic. The result shows that urban low-income families experience greater challenge in accessing healthcare, home-based learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, and movement control order (MCO). Moreover, urban low-income families also experience lack food resources. This is due to the many of the households are less able to cope with the pandemic because of low saving. Sum it up, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted vulnerable groups, especially B40 and households that live in the urban areas that are already poor. COVID-19 pandemic throughout the year 2020 has impacted the vulnerable groups. Since the MCO was imposed on March 18, 2020 to curb from spread, the pandemic had caused disruption to people's income and exposed more households to poverty. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic throughout the year 2020 had caused the poverty rate increasing from 5.6% in 2019 to 8.4% in 2020. Since the poverty line income PLI updated, which is 2,208 ringgit Malaysia in 2019, it caused the total urban population to fall into a higher poor category, which is 223,300 people, equivalent to 3.8%. Therefore, for those living in urban areas with an income of around 2,200 ringgit Malaysia, they belong to the category below the urban poverty level. For instance, according to Ministry of Federal Territories Tan Sri Anwar Musa, about 30,000 heads of household in capital belongs to the category below the urban poverty level. The groups is detected in 178 localities around the Kuala Lumpur.
Housing condition. In Malaysia, typically the family consists of 5 members. The low-cost house will quickly become overcrowded and inadequate for comfortable and healthy living. The budget homes are often plagued with reckless management, which result in bad construction. This will allow for a rise in physical imperfection in the housing condition. For example, leaking roof, poor electrical connection, and insufficient ventilation. Due to they can afford a better home and don't have many options for inexpensive housing, the urban poor are compelled to accept substandard living circumstances. Low level of education. There are many poor people in this country who still have a low level of education, as their family cannot afford to provide higher education and they will continue trapped in poverty. For example, parents do not have time or resource to devote to their children, and as a result, without a proper education, they will probably be working in low-paying jobs. These people usually don't have any English language skill and computer skill. Thus, this makes them difficult to get a better job opportunities while having no experience. Security. The high number of Unemployment in urban area will indirectly lead to social problems and increase in crime, in turn disrupting aspects of community safety in urban areas. Limited employment opportunities and the attitude of employers who set certain criteria cause the unemployed from urban poor to take the easy way out by engaging in theft, drugs, and other negative activity. The high cost of living in the city has also caused low-income individuals to start finding easy way by committing criminal activity for their own survival. Mass migration. This mass migration raises new issues about economic accessibility. This involves access to employment opportunities, public facility, and access to healthcare. This non-ability has worsened the first problem to the point of widening the economic gap between urban and rural areas. For instance, we can observe that when many rural people migrate to the city, then there is an imbalance between the needs and supply of labor in the city. This is due to the lack of employment opportunity for those with the appropriate level of education and skill.
Urban poverty occurs due to the excessively high cost of living, but there are many ways to overcome urban poverty. Among them is self-equipping with high approval. Undoubtedly, the standard of education nowadays is very much considered in society. Higher education is one of the steps that need to be taken to position themselves in the employment sector. This is because a person's road to a better life and a higher social status might be paved through education. A person's education is crucial in securing a high-paying job. However, due to today's tremendous competition for jobs, even highly educated people are unemployed. But still, for an educated person, the door to employment in both the public and private sectors remains open. Despite the fierce competition, there are still opportunities to achieve goals. In addition to formal education, we must also possess specific skill. Many institutions have been established in recent years with the goal of developing Bumiputra youths who are trained in a variety of technical and skill domains, qualifying them to work in the trade, enterprise and industrial sector, as well as creating future entrepreneurs. These institutions are made to enhance youths and teenagers who do not have access to higher education the opportunity to earn approvals and skills that would qualify them to work for commercial firms. The country needs more knowledge focus in line with educational change driven by the development of a technology-based economy.
Poverty gap that still exists is worrying because poverty will continue to generate poverty in a vicious cycle of poverty. This vicious cycle of poverty refers to a state of poverty or a poverty trap. These situations can be likened to poverty inherited from one generation to the next. This situation will result in a state of continuing poverty among the community groups with no hope of getting out of it. So this is where the role of the authorities is very important so that poor households can get out of the cycle of poverty. However, it must be emphasized that the fight against poverty will not be successful if only one party plays a role. The poor households themselves need to strive to change their standard of living for the better and more comfortable.